Investing in long-term, bold, strategic decisions in Botswana needs a particular mindset. So that's what we need for this country, because the communal system, for me, is going to kill our environment, because we've got the majority of cattle roaming the bush, no control of the environment, and at 40% calving rate. I doubt if lots of farms in Botswana actually make money, but people are putting a lot of money into farming. So it's largely a very unproductive sector. The fact that we are still very low in investment in R&D, yet we can put billions on subsidized crops that don't get deweeded and are very unproductive, it's a skewed policy. It's a skewed policy that's going to cost us big when these diamonds run off, man. Because you can imagine right now it's a total disaster where we're having a season where it's been extremely hot, no rain. Botswana's cattle stock decreases almost 50% every time there's such a... This one might even be worse.
So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, help me welcome back to the show, Mr. Kengwanyane.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
How are you doing?
We're doing good, man.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to Deep Dive Sessions. My name is Mpho Motaro. Thank you guys for stopping by. Our goal with this show is to bring you and I in proximity to the people and ideas that will show us that it is possible and it can be done, and eventually help us achieve on our dreams, on our goals. Today, we have a special guest back again on Deep Dive Sessions. He is the MD of InnoLead Consulting. They have branches in Botswana, Uganda, Zambia. He is the MD also of Digital Khaye and Manenzo Farming. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, help me welcome back to the show, Mr. Kengwanyane.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Paul.
How are you doing?
We're doing good, man.
You look like a farmer today. 100%. You came ready, eh?
I hope so.
With that attire. Yeah, I'm so excited for us to be back. I think we were back here maybe about 5 months back. I guess you have actually broken Deep Dive record of being of bringing back a guest in a short duration of time. On the what do we call it? Lead time. The lead time. Till the time you are here is the shortest.
No, sure.
Yeah, that's basically what I was trying to say before the English bundles. Decided to.
Sure.
But how are you?
No, we're doing good, man. No
Awesome.
problem. All good. 110%.
110.
Yeah.
Not even 100, eh?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, so last time around we talked about 10xing our businesses. And today we're talking about 10x farming. And so farming is something that you've talked very passionately about. And so first of all, let's just talk about Manenzo, where this started for you and where you're taking it before we even get into all these aspects.
No, sure. Manenzo farming really started now about 14 years. And it started as around 2010, 2009. And the idea was really... and I'll talk more about it because it's about there's a bit of inheritance to it. Inheritance meaning that, a lot of us, our grandfathers, our grandmothers, they worked on the earth.
Yes.
My grandfather, Koborolong, was a very, very committed farmer, both on the cattle side and on the crop side.
Okay.
So Koborolong is not like other areas in Botswana where and then there's a place we're going. Rona, it was all compact.
All in one.
Where at the back we had the cattle cross and the crush. And on the front we had the fields where we were, my grandfather was doing maize, was doing peanuts, was doing sunflower or sonoblom, as we used to call it, and all those. So that was in the 70s and so forth. And he was at the time. Barolong area was renowned as the grain basket of Botswana. That's where, the guys used to really produce their equipment, and they really worked the earth. That's why you got those huge silos there by Pizani. The farmers in the area used to fill those up.
Right.
So as I went into my career, where I went into corporate and later on I went into being an entrepreneur, I'd always said, I'd always had that feeling, I need to, that inheritance of my family needs to carry on. Always was calling.
Yeah.
So that's how around 2008 and so forth, I said, now I'm ready. Because one thing about farming, you also have to be ready because you need time. You need to invest time. It's very capex intensive. So in terms of investment and equipment and what, you got to be ready. So when I was about 40, I said, before my energy started dropping in the 50s, and when I thought I was ready in terms of a family, in terms of time, because, it really takes your time. So that's when we started, and I looked for, the first thing was I started with basically cattle. So I used our cattle area in Borolong where my late father was still there. So I started collecting the Kongwananyana, buying from auctions just to have a base. And then once the base was big enough, because now I was having all these losses to do with communal farming. And we'll talk more about it. Communal farming is really... It's sad how inefficient it is. And one of the things that we'll talk about is why are we carrying on with a system that's costing us in terms of water, environment, and stress. Water skills and everything. So it's a big thing. So I had a stint of that when I was in the communal, and that's like, this can work. So quickly I looked for a farm. And that's where we managed to get a farm in the Sandveld area, where we also farming. So we got a 6x6 there, where we started farming with Simmental, Brahman, and a bit of
kilometers.
6x6
kilometers.
Yeah, 6x6 kilometers, about 3,700 hectares.
That's a lot.
That we have. A lot is relative. We'll talk about that as well. Because that's something that also, which is important for youngsters and all those that are also retiring want to go into farming, because 6x6, I would look at it relative, because later on I found that 6x6 was actually very difficult to be profitable. Because of first the distance is very far out there in the sands. There is no infrastructure. The roads are horrible. There is no telecom. We'll talk more about some horror stories where one time I got stuck for 2 days in the bush there in the lion territory. So that was the first farm, and then so I found out that 6x6. I did the spreadsheet. I said Adi. So that's when I started looking for land. I even approached the minister then, Minister Di Graaf. I said, Mr. Di Graaf, why are you guys telling people why are you doing 6x6 when first you can only have so many cattle in a 6x6 because our land is fairly sensitive. They call it a stocking rate. So the amount of cattle you can keep in a sensitive area is very limited. And I remember when I applied for CEDA at the time, you could only have about 250 to 300 livestock units in that space.
On 6x6?
Yeah, on a 6x6. So I said, after 2 years, I could see what,
It's not
so I approached the guy, this thing, it won't work for me because I want a profitable venture. This is not just a lifestyle support, because if we talk about entrepreneurship, there are different types of entrepreneurs. There are lifestyle support, and then there are people that want to accomplish 10x like me and others. So you got to select guy. There are people that are comfortable 6x6, beautiful cattle. They go there, they spend their family money, whether profit or not. Hey man, they're not bothered. So that's when I applied a couple of tenders all over Botswana, lost, shortlisted, lost, but kept going. Like anything else, hey man, persistence.
Grit.
So later on, there were adverts for Banyana Farms where I applied and told the story of how I want to expand the farm in terms of 10xing it. And then so I managed to through a very rigorous interview where there were a lot of South Africans who came across, were invited. It was a regional tender where outsiders were also invited. So we met a lot of South African big farmers at the interview process. So I managed to secure some land there where now, for me, I know there could be different categories that qualified me to go into almost a medium size, because with the 6x6 and now a 9x10, that made me to say, now I can start going into profit, because, in Botswana, we've got guys with 60,000, 30,000, 60,000 hectares of land in Khanzi, Molopo, and those areas. So they are large-scale farmers who are really are able to turn profits. And I always tell youngsters who want to go into farming, look, it's a game of numbers. Do your spreadsheet, do your break even, find out where, and don't underestimate the costs, because farming grills you.
Yeah.
So then we had a vision we had a what you call massive transformation purpose, where in terms of the moonshot, I mean, I remember the target was that we're targeting 1,000 breeding stock in 10 years. When you got Banyana, and currently Rinsara Totoba, but it's important to have that stretch target. Then you continuously work on it for you able to get the profitability that you want. So so currently we've got that land, and then again from learning, we'll talk about how for you to 10x your farming practice, you got to keep experimenting. Yeah. That's something that we don't do enough. So experimenting, seeing what happened in terms of feed. I said, again, there's a problem here.
Yeah.
The problem is feed. Botswana is arid, desert areas, drought, all that jazz. Got to find a solution. Solution, we got to grow our own crops. Got to grow your own crops to make it sustainable. So again, went hunting again. So went hunting again, and again, we managed to secure, it's not too much, just a 200-hectare thing, where now currently we are planning to grow our own fodder.
Oh, so you grow your own fodder there.
So we can feed the cattle, because you can imagine right now it's a total disaster, where we're having a season where it's been extremely hot, no rain. I mean, Botswana's cattle stock decreases almost 50% every time there's this one might even be worse. So for me, it talks to the whole ecosystem, but it's not properly structured. We know there's going to be droughts. So how do we plan and mitigate to ensure that we don't lose our stock every time we get hit by stock? So so that's where we are. We've got the hectares that we got, and it's a very interesting, very exciting thing that we've embarked on.
Lovely. There's a lot to actually touch on what you just said. Mehela, I liked what you talked about, especially in the beginning.
Sure.
Every weekend wa moraking. Mariato mo family ngakwa. But I'm not seeing how we're sustainable. We're a bit traditional in that. So talk to me about that. Even just identifying the costs, because also there are other hidden costs that we don't get to see that take away from that. And then when you then get the money, it didn't bring profit to you. So
I think let's start with. I like starting with some good news and some good things about farming in Botswana.
Yes.
So that we put some positivity, some happiness aspect to it.
Yes.
So Botswana love farming. That's a very positive thing about us. I think because by not evolution, by heritage. Even when Botswana is modernizing as a country, it is not far away when our parents were working the soils.
Yes.
In terms of subsistence and balema mabele ba thuga reporta. I mean, some of us went through those phases. Ke phutile kana man. Reporta wa go Sebwaneng, wa Sebwana. Ra go Sebwaneng where and all that. So all that we can recall. And like I always tell youngsters, always try to inherit what your family line had gone through, because there's always a bit of a soul to it. So for Botswana, there is really a soul to farming. If you read or you find out about, even globally, for instance, the French are always also attached to the earth. They do dairy, they do farming. Also, obviously the environment is very suitable. In Texas, that's why the president went to Texas. Passionate country, even style. Even the clothing and everything. So even the swag that goes with it. Today I look a bit farmerish. So there's that very positive element that people, currently it's excellent. Even the president is at the forefront. And we'll talk more about, we've got some really excellent commercial farmers. It's got a lot of challenges. I think it's got more challenges than the ability to thrive in terms of the whole ecosystem. Now, taking it from that passion, it means, I feel sorry for people. Some people retire at 16, some of you parents, they retire. But oh man, you can see all my idea. They really, really, because it, even, I've talked to top farmers in South Africa. In farming, there is always something to spend on. I try to always note that. There is always something, whether it's molemo for the cocoa or some vaccination, or you are short of bulls, or you are short of rams, or you say, I need that heifer for that. There's always, if you look at your thing, so you got to be extremely disciplined in terms of the money that you spend. That is why it's extremely difficult to make money in farming if you are not doing precision stuff. I mean, these days they talk about precision farming. In other words, every data point needs to be collected, put onto a system, and you calculate profitability and every aspect of when you're doing crop, you got to know the moisture, you got to know the humidity, you got to know, the type of soils. Right now, you go well like where we are moving in terms of going into crop. And that piece of we've done soil tests, we've done water tests. We've looked at the whole area as to how best to exploit to get best pula per hectare. So you got to get to that precision. And obviously on top of that, you got to now place technology so that now there's almost live data that gets. But obviously that depends on whether you've got infrastructure for that in terms of telco, where you can do IoT and so forth. But in terms of expenditure, I tell you, you can spend everything. I doubt if lots of farms in Botswana actually make money, but people are putting a lot of money into farming. Yeah. So it's largely a very unproductive sector as we speak, And it's what's also interesting is that you find CEOs, senior managers who, as a consultant, we do strategies and fancy assessments and SWOT analysis for them, financial models. When it comes to farming, Mutwana got a quick so it's very sad because with our farm, we've got a farm manager and I believe in data. So even from start, we produce monthly reports. We apply the balance scorecard. So every camp in the farm has got a scorecard, and it's all linked up to the performance model where the farm workers are compensated and given bonuses based on specific indicators like calving rate, mortality rate, and those type of things. And it's just amazing. And this thing, some of my friends, they laugh at me, but I was just a flip charcoal farm. But it actually motivates. It gets sometimes we accuse our workers for not performing. People say Botswana are lazy. Every behavior is affected by the incentive, the extent of the incentive. If they know if we perform, if we achieve 80% calving rate, I know that I'm going to get 2 times my salary. And for them it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So those things drive performance, and driving performance means you get your money back and you can start doing the modeling and all that, and productivity is high.
Okay. So this model, where do you kind of learn these models? Because as I'm listening to you, you came in, this is what has been done in the family over time. Guess it's sort of where they're doing it like you are saying it right now in terms of these models and how you are breaking it down. Where were you able to learn these models and be able to bring them into your farm and be able to kind of model it for your farm, customizing them for your farm?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, the model. We at InnoLead, obviously, we are a business consulting firm, so we do a lot of performance modeling for companies. We do a lot of competitive analysis for companies. We do a lot of growth strategies, efficiency strategies. So for me, it just came natural, to say you can't say one thing and then So for me, in terms of applying it in every entity that I'm participating in, it's almost an imperative. So that is why with farming, it was just natural that do a SWOT analysis or competitor analysis and find out how this business is going to grow, how it's going to survive, where is the break-even point, when are we start 10xing so that it can return all the investments you've put in it. So for us, the balance scorecard was a natural thing because I've applied it in lots of corporates, blue, thing here in Botswana. So it was almost natural for me. And then also, it works. Like I said, it works because you got more efficient workers. Sometimes people come to our farm to visit the farm and they say, hey, your workers, they're always commenting about the workers because they're motivated. I empower them to make decisions. And this is one of the really unfortunate things when I'm aware, the treatment of our workers and people almost sometimes become even racist. And you can imagine other areas like our fellow brothers and sisters, Babasaro. So they say, Bo Banzijana, what do you expect from these people? Which is very unfortunate because, I always tell people, don't go into business if you don't love people.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, and when I work with people, energy,
You're
enthusiasm,
energized.
happiness, and just, humans are such exciting things. If I can borrow some Nigeria thing.
Yeah.
Exciting things in terms of, the uniqueness, the vibrancy, the difference in terms of who we are. So when I go to the farm, and when you get into an enterprise or an occupation, make sure that it also tingles your buttons as well. In other words, it has to bring some level of happiness. You got to enjoy it. Otherwise, that's why I can't tell you don't even treat workers properly.
Right.
You don't even treat the animals properly. So for me, animals, nature, trees. I mean, when I'm at the farm, I take pictures of trees because you got such, again, the felt is beautiful, the grasses.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, as who was it? What is Socrates? The world, Socrates, if you're not inquisitive in life, the world is not worth living in.
Yeah, it's not exciting.
Something like that, exactly.
Yeah.
So that talks to me.
Yeah.
But when you go to the farm, the animals, the grasses, the trees, the wildlife, you're going to ask me about the lions that are busy, busy, feeding on our animals at the same time. For me, it's sad, but at the same time, hey, man, we went into their area. I told you about the story about 3 weeks ago when we got lions on the farm, and they actually ate some of our animals, and everybody was panicking. I mean, when I was telling some of my neighbors, so we have this culture of saying, let's kill them. And I know, look, it's painful when you lose cattle. But what I'm saying is, if you have a spirit of abundance, if you know that, I mean, mathatau, in other words, there's even that saying.
Okay.
That say, if they eat two, more will be born. So now I embrace that spirit. Let's find a way of chasing. I mean, we have instances. I think it was 2010 where I was actually with my son, where we had to chase some lions out of our farm. So we had the gun and everything, but I said no shooting. So we collected the dogs, got the neighbors. I mean, it was a beautiful event. So the excitement. I mean, the guys were jumping.
I can only
let me
imagine.
tell you the story. For the sake of it. So we were busy vaccinating. The cattle were all in the crash, and the whole farm setting. Beautiful morning and everything. All those beautiful activities. And my son was there as well. So about 10 years. Some of these guys who are local, they were all sitting on top of the crashes. They were getting agitated and really excited. But the lions are here.
Yeah.
They all get. Yes. So you see, you have to know your heritage, young man.
Yeah, definitely.
So there we go. We start saying, what do we do? And excitement. And I think, no, that was before I can only sip. Yeah. So the guy said, where do you get it? No, the neighbors have one. So because you can't really follow them without having a gun.
Yeah.
So we arranged, we went to one of the neighbors, grab a gun, and the guy there could shoot as well. So we said, come in, because you could see they were actually about 150 meters away from where we are by the homestead.
Close,
So we needed to make sure that we are equipped. So we went and had dogs. We need dogs, because dogs are getting that smell and all that. It's much better, and you can see those local guys in the area. Adrenaline was pumping.
These strong dogs.
No. It's just from neighbors, just ordinary dogs. But they get excited as well. So and then we went after these guys, and some of the guys were walking in front. With the dogs, so they didn't happily. I wanted to, so I was at the back of the buggy, safely. My son was driving, and I was sitting next to the guy with the CP. So it was a 5-hour adventure where we were chasing them, and where we don't talk about our heritage. What it really impressed me was the storytelling from our Basarwa head men and head boys. We will rush, but no, it's just here. Harema will see the pause, the spurs, and they could tell from the spores how they were actually sitting. But no, and they will describe. Because it's like a story, it's like a book. I was like, wow, what heritage, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, we chased them. We had a puncture, and then we repaired the puncture. When we chased them right into the CKGR.
Okay.
But then later on in the evening, I'm cutting the whole story short.
Yeah.
Then we came back. But it was a nice adventure. I loved it. My son was there.
Yeah.
He was also experienced this,
Hey, I would have loved
thing.
it.
You're allowed to be there.
Yeah. I would have loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is, I talk about every enterprise got its unique feature, and I have a sense of adventure. So for me, these adventures are part of the package that make it exciting. You know, they love, even the farm workers, actually walk the bush and look for snakes, because snakes also, they amuse me a lot in terms of the different types of snakes. And there was one time I went to the farm. You wouldn't believe it. I saw 4 different types of snakes in one weekend. When I go to Sandfield, this country is amazing with species and and people outside in the world, they want to hear these things.
Yeah, they want to hear these things.
I think I told you last time that I attended this entrepreneurship coaching program in Canada, and I go there and I tell these stories.
Yeah.
You can't believe it. I get about these stories, but they want to come to Botswana. They're just acting like you. And these are the stories that as Africans we've got to present them in a positive light, and people want to hear stories about Africa. I want to hear these unique stories, because tell them, man, their lives are boring, dudes. When you talk about chasing lions, they're like, I want to be one of those, So that's they were really, really excited when I tell them these stories, over a drink after the workshop.
Lovely. And what's life without a little thrill?
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Khemunyani, currently the climate is dire. It's a problem. There's many other challenges that farmers are dealing with. I wanted us to go into the challenges that we are dealing with more Botswana specifically, and also how you're grappling with them. Also in relation to what we can learn from countries globally in terms of dealing with such challenges. Because I don't think our challenges are inherently unique, but we can learn 1 or 2 things from other countries. But how are you grappling with some of these challenges, especially we have had heat wave the whole year. This year. So
it's not a wave.
It's not a wave anymore. It's
like I always tell people, there was a time when one of our former presidents every year declares droughts. Why don't we turn it around? Why don't we declare a good year, a non-drought, instead of an announcer? Because then we don't sound like we are really thinking it over. So climate issues, climate change, is one of the big, maybe even the biggest risk for Botswana. And I'm sure from a legal and a policy front, the ministry and the Ministry of Environment are doing all the relevant policies. But in terms of specific farming practices, we definitely can do better. I think there is a lot of, there's not enough information for farmers to really effectively manage the impact of climate change. This drought will happen again. I've gone through, this is now my second disastrous drought, 2017-18, on our area here in the south. It was really bad. It was worse than that. We also lost, because there was a bit of an earthquake, we also lost our boreholes. So it became a double whammy, where we had water issues and then drought. There was a bit of a tremor around those areas. So we lost our main borehole, and we had issues with water. So what do you do? In terms of specifically talking about cattle farming and cattle breeding, you got to design your layout of a farm premised on the climate change principles. First, you will have droughts, as an example. So it's important that you save your grasses.
Yeah, that's a given, eh?
Yeah, you have to save your grasses. So that's how you do through your paddocking system. So with our farm, we've got, since we acquired the farm in 2012, we have an ongoing program of developing paddocks year on year. We have contractors who are almost permanent, and their work is just to keep helping with doing poles, doing fencing, so that we have more and more. Right now, with this disaster, at least we know that we have enough grasses for them, because we have camps that we haven't used in terms of paddocks ready for the bad day. So that's something that you need to do in terms of preparing for the fertilizer, because overstocking and overgrazing is a real problem.
Yeah.
I mean, this just worsens the situation where you don't look after your veld. In Botswana specifically, you also end up losing your what we call your original palatable grasses. Palatable grasses are grasses that you always pick the juiciest and the most nutritious. So cattle go for the most nutritious, and they're called palatable grasses. And a lot of the areas in Botswana have lost palatable grasses because of overgrazing. And on the veld actually loses that species. So in a lot of our areas, like the Sandveld area, we also have what you call bush encroachment, where when you overgraze and you lose the grasses, the trees come up. So we have that huge problem in our Banyana farming area, where we've got this encroachment here at tree or swarthak in Afrikaans. So there's a lot of it is taken over and is now the grazing, where now you don't have grazing. It's also very annoying to cattle because in Alimitwa. So some of these cattle, exotic breeds like Bosharole, they can't go through those who are Limito, so they're not able to graze properly. So it affects it. So we currently have a problem. And then the one that makes it worse is the communal system. Now you can't control communal system where everybody's got 50, 10, everyone are grazing everywhere, and then you got soil erosion, you got losing of species, you got, I mean, right now with drought, I mean, in our area, Yaborolong, it's a real bad in terms of the impact of overgrazing on the quality of grazing. So it's something that we really, I mean, I personally, I have a problem with. Although I see the social aspects of letting everybody have land uncontrolled, cattle roaming everywhere, and then we say it's okay. I've told people I think we need a bit more control. You know, first for efficiency. That whole system, the calving rate is 40%, according to the Minister of Agriculture. Last time I got the figure. 40% means out of all those 100 cattle, only 40 they give birth every year. I mean, how inefficient and then we just keep going with that system. And then we saying food security, we need to produce more and all that. So the communal system for me, it needs serious reviewing in terms of a solution that would be good for the climate, because we are losing a lot of species, we are causing a lot of soil erosion and those type of things which are really bad for our environment. So those erosions, when you have heat like this, it becomes worse because you don't have ground cover. In our farms, for instance, because you've got a bit of grass, it means when you have this heat, the important thing when you have ground cover, it keeps a bit of moisture.
Yes.
So you're able to maintain the moisture and hopefully easier for the grasses to come out at a later date. So when you don't have ground cover, and you got all this erosion, it means that now the soils are really getting hit, direct by the heat, and it really
and it cracks and all that.
Yeah. So that's the biggest. So we really need to have a target policy towards farming and climate change,
going to ask you
and go back to specific farming practices and our policies that encourage and even incentives. I mean, right now, one of the things that I was going to talk about when you talk about 10xing is that we got to leverage 10x technologies. One of the technologies that's really making huge impact globally. I was even last night in a conference online. It's a conference, technology conference in Los Angeles, that they were talking about how the price of solar has dropped exponentially since the 70s, and it continues to drop. So solar in a couple of years, maybe even before the turn of this decade, the price will be so low. And why are we not leveraging solar as a source of energy in terms of because a lot of our water we get from boreholes. Even if you get it from a river, you can use solar, and even just outside agriculture, we can really go and just subsidize farmers so that they stop using fuel. I mean, that's a good carbon strategy to do that. So those are the things that why we're not incentivizing people. First, the technology is there; it's getting cheaper. And secondly, it's good for the environment. I mean, it's talking about profit. Solar, no moving parts. We just finished installing our our final solar for one of our boreholes at our farm. And with this heat, it really pumps. Really pumps. And, then you have a peace of mind because
Botswana has
every day...
the largest, I forgot what it's called in terms of the solar index, in terms of the how much the sun shines in a day.
Illumination.
Illumination.
Yes.
It's one of the highest in the world.
No, it's one of the highest. Botswana, Namibia, and they've got one of the highest. And I think I mentioned that last time. And it's something that we are not capitalizing in terms of making sure that we draw on this, even if we get investors. And then we supply, energy to the region, in terms of green energy. So it's a huge opportunity that we are not exploiting as a technology that can help a lot of us who are outside the grid. The whole Sandveld area is far away from the grid, and a lot of communal farmers are out there in the bush. If you get solar, it will really improve the quality of life of people out there, because then you can even have a fridge. Some of these vaccines that you use for cattle, they need refrigeration. And then you lose the vaccine. So in terms of climate change, I think we can do better.
That's what we can do.
Yeah.
So in terms of some of these also, I understand you're talking about solar. What are some of maybe the 10x strategies that you can also employ, especially leveraging technology and also what's going on around the world? We talked about Netherlands over the break and how they're doing exceptionally well in their country in terms of how you said 70 billion.
Yeah.
Walk us through some of those.
What can we learn from that?
Strategies, yes, and what we can learn from these countries.
I think. Look, my heart is really close to research, development, and science technology. I think that should be the next bet for Botswana after diamonds, because that's really true knowledge, and it advances human development. And a lot of our countries have emerged through leveraging R&D. Now, how do you measure a country in terms of the level of investment in R&D? Is the amount of money they spend as a percentage of GDP on R&D is called GERD index, GERD index. And Botswana's target has been 1%, I think, but we haven't even touched 1%. I think the African Union target is 2% because Africa is coming from a very low base. We need to catch up, dude. Yeah. So we are not there in terms of... Now, I just read some documents from Minister of Agriculture. They even said we don't have a research and development agenda. Can you believe it? And it's not like there hasn't been pockets. For instance, in terms of cattle breeding, there was a breed that was developed here in Botswana called Musi. But I understand from the Ministry of Agriculture, Musi is only like 0.1% of the cattle crop here, so it's not taking off. Even on crop side, in terms of seeds, genetics, the impact has also been very minimum. So the fact that we are still very low in investment in R&D, yet we can put billions on subsidized crops that don't get deweeded and are very unproductive. It's a skewed policy. It's a skewed policy that's going to cost us big when these diamonds run out, my man. Imagine if the diamonds run out and we have technologified our agriculture, for lack of a better word. In other words, we are running on precision farming. We've got drones spreading fertilizer. You don't need to use tractors heavy and all that because you can use drones to fertilize your soils. You use IoT to say we only put enough water as per the humidity of the soils and the need of the crop. That's precision farming. Yeah. But to do that, you need what? You need IoT, you need sensors, you need, communication in terms of software systems, and those are available. That's what they're using in the Netherlands. That's what they're using in Israel. Israel, which is also very arid,
it's a desert,
but they produce. So these things have been done and they can be done. But if you don't ring fence our technology and research in this space. I'm in some of these farmers groups and always debating about genetics, about that. It's like, guys, if we don't have our own research capability. South Africa is way ahead of us. Like I said earlier, they've got the Agriculture Research Council. They study breeds. They've developed their own breeds like the Bonsmara, which is now picking up in Botswana. Bonsmara was developed many years ago by a professor in South Africa, again, to suit the environment. The Dopa sheep was developed in South Africa. So there are a lot of things that you can do. But where are our microbiologists, where are our scientists, where are all those? That's why I get very sad when I get results like we are getting from 5, where now we are condemning all our kids to the streets and so they don't go through education so that we can boost our R&D capability. Right? So that's an area that can really 10x. Imagine we look at solar, we look at IoT, we look at algorithms, use of AI. This is going to revolutionize health, education, now even agriculture. But why don't we have a AI council in Botswana? Other countries, moving forward like UAE, Dubai, they've got a AI council to look at how the country can leverage AI. Things don't just fall off. They happen because people are intentional on doing things that can value our country. Sometimes I have sometimes the problem is this. I always have a problem with this 5-year political thing, because sometimes, unfortunately, our politicians are motivated by doing what's in the short term but damaging in the long term, like these subsidies. I mean, if you hear the figures, there are billions that have been poured into ISPAD. And before we had Arab and all those programs, that money was just put and totally underutilized. And I say, if you use just 20% of those billions to put in R&D, Botswana will be far off. We'll be very far off. And I have to add, I'm a doomsday preacher, because there are pockets of excellence in the country. I did talk about the Pandamatenga is a very good experiment. We found out those are good soils, good for crops, and it's happening there. And I'm not 10 exactly. Why don't we double the area? Even if we say, we've got protected areas, man, people got to eat. People got to eat too. They don't eat elephants, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if the soils are excellent, we have food security issues, why don't we just expand the area?
Yeah.
Just double. I think last time, I think they were talking about 40 or so thousand hectares that's been demarcated right now. I was like, pull the thing to 100,000 hectares and even if Botswana are not ready, pull more farmers from South Africa. Let's get them here, just like we've got South African farmers showing us that we can do potatoes and hanzi. But because without research, we bump onto things. Because right now we've got hanzi, where potatoes, because some guys from South Africa came and said, this can happen. Why us as a country could not actually think about that?
Is it a problem of infrastructure? Like, are we lacking infrastructure to be able to build some of these?
What really? I mean,
agree about AI. It has been an issue for some of the infrastructure thing.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely. You need telco. You need. For you to apply, Internet of Things, you need the basic infrastructure there in terms of connectivity. So infrastructure is a big problem. I mean, right now, in the Sandfield area, we don't have signal. We don't have. I mean, the roads are terrible. There's been preaching about putting roads and all those things, and it's not happening. Very frustrating, because, as my friend Mpo as well said earlier, it makes it unprofitable. I mean, Cruiser Namana is battered. It's battered. It makes it at nightmare in terms of attractive to young people, because I have spent 2 nights in the bush because we had breakdowns. And there's no signal to talk to anybody.
And there's lions.
And there are lions. A bit of adventure. So those are the things. And we've got I think about over 300 farms in those areas. Why don't you put infrastructure to make the area is productive? It's got good grass, it's got water. So let's make sure that people, because half the time when farmers take their produce to, so much delaying. I get it, the roads are terrible. So a lot of the cattle die, especially when you're trying to cull the old ladies. You're trying to cull old ladies in the farms, because they can't produce anymore. So half the time, because they're already weak and all that, some of them, they die before they reach BMC because of those roads. So that's something that we need to attend. But I have to say, when I'm poor, and I've said this in other interviews, where this mindset thing, we've got to have a different perspective to it. Because the fact that we bump onto potatoes, they're beautiful things. I mean, they're producing, and I totally support the stopping of imports from South Africa, because that's how you nurture an industry. And then we bumped onto citrus in Selipepiko area. I mean, it's like, where is the research people? Just the president goes there, gets the investors. All of a sudden, we can grow. We can do dinamuni, lamuni.
So and there are many. I was there. I think there's like 840,000 trees. It is crazy.
What I'm saying is then let's 10x that.
Yeah.
If the soils are good, the climate is good, and let's put all the sensors, make sure it's good enough. Let's do more so that we can export more and boost our GDP and run away from and diversify from diamonds. Even in our area, in the Molopo area, we just found out, just the other side of the border on the Molopo River, they do potatoes too.
Oh.
Yeah, they do potatoes. And said, okay. So Ronamo Botswana and South Africa, like I said, they do more research. So chances are they check the soils. Chances are these guys that relocated, they actually went there and studied the soil, studied the water, and said, we can do potato. So we need to apply more science.
Yeah.
And the science and the decision to say science can save Botswana, it's a mindset thing. But that's why I get it. Sometimes this 5-year thing is like, I got to win elections first. It's like the communal system.
Yeah,
Someone was telling me that, the politicians are going to disrupt the communal system. They'll lose elections. So, investing in long-term, bold, strategic decisions in Botswana needs a particular mindset. Right, right. So that's what we need for this country, because the communal system, for me, is going to kill our environment, because we've got the majority of cattle that are just roaming the bush, no control of the environment, and at 40% calving rate. And we've got to promote more commercial. And we've got really good commercial farmers in Botswana, I have to add, in terms, again, like I said, we've got pockets of excellence. Like there's a Brahman breeder on the edges, on the edges of Francistown with no name. And he's doing fantastic in terms of exporting genetics and the type of Brahman that is breeding there. We've got a lot of good breeders in the Hansi area. We've got a lot of Botswana. Botswana, they're really committed, and they spend time in the sun. They are grueling, and they love this industry, and they're working hard at it. Even in the Molopo area, Banyana area where I am, there are also some fantastic genetics that have been produced there, where we can even repackage and be able to export our genetics. But there's no underlying philosophy and strategy of the Botswana genetics. How many times do we talk about the Botswana beef?
Yeah.
And what is Botswana beef? We always say that, it's great. They are free range, and that's not good enough.
Yeah.
What are they grazing? Why is the taste the way it is? Because Botswana beef tastes really good.
Yeah, it tastes really good.
We had a visitor from the States last year from Silicon Valley. This guy, I'm sure just because of the amount of steak he ate.
Even Steve Harvey was saying Botswana is the best in the world.
But I want to see the IP behind that. I hope you and the audience can see that. Unless, that's the knowledge economy, my man. That is when you're talking knowledge economy. When you IP, when you got something that's different and is captured, is documented, and actually can derive value out of it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah,
so that's
definitely.
really the essence. That's why it's a mindset thing. It's a readiness to spend money on R&D and be able to do this.
Definitely. I think also when it's like that, because we once had Remutibedi, one of the timepieces, Abu Ahore, Kana Salohubule Kamatlao. I think they said they were going to do it in Lobat, but it's not yet been done.
Yeah.
Of which could also build an ecosystem around everything.
No, sure.
We're building it from the ground up.
From a
using our
value
own
chain
things
perspective.
And create an entire value chain for ourselves, Mobusan. I also understand that I think Israel, just like as much as of it's I think it's worse of a desert than we are. They are one of the highest producers of dates. I think olives too. I forgot the other one. I think strawberries. They managed to somehow turn around the desert in a way that they were able to produce these things.
Research and science. The Israel has built one of the strongest R&D ecosystem in the world. That is why even technologies, Microsoft has got these big offices there and all these, because they go there and they buy these companies that come up with new ideas. That's why they're applied in agriculture. They're applied in all the other spheres of Israel. So it goes back to technology. That's why they know this soil, that sun, the humidity, everything, we can do dates. And then when droughts come and the Charolais breed, we've got the Charolais breed. It's one of the most sensitive breeds. Obviously, I know, my good friend who introduced Charolais in Botswana is a very good guy. He's one of the top breeders, by the way. But the Charolais compared to others is not as hardy as other breeds. But that's, sometimes farmers come to me and they want to buy different milk. I go, no. Be careful with the Charolais, especially if you're in a communal area, because Charolais is not meant to walk. Charolais doesn't like heat. You're not
Soft
because
life.
but soft life because the heat is too much.
Yes.
So what happens? It affects its nutritional value. It doesn't go on heat. It doesn't produce until you're having the 40% calving rate. So that is the essence that we got to know which breeds are good for our area, and they're different. Botswana in the south, in the west, and they're all different. That's why we need technology to be able to pick. We need sort of a climatic, I once said this in a group, we need a climatic map of Botswana. Just like we have the spatial map in terms of that identifies the different soils. That's the 10x stuff. Because once we have identified and compiled what are the soils in box pits, maybe those are the ones that will go with the Israeli type thing. What are the soils in Tuli? What are the soils in Panamatenga? Koborolo? What is that? One of the other things that to 10x is I think I mentioned earlier as well, the experimentation. It's if you want to exponentially do things, because if you don't experiment, you don't bump into progress. That's right. So you need to be able to try new things. As an example, I visited, I went with my farm manager, visited one of the top farms in the Tuli, where they do grain. They're really doing good. And I think they're doing about 600 hectares, all irrigation. And they were saying when we went there, they were doing wheat for the first time. And wheat is not really renowned in Botswana when we do wheat. And you can't believe it. They say, wheat performed like nobody's. So they experimented. Now they even removed all the others. Now they're even doing more wheat because they experiment. In the farm, our farm there, we experiment with I love trees, by the way. So I planted all sorts of trees there because there, the frost is just too much. Every time we plant a tree, every winter it dies. So which fruit tree? So far, the ones that's surviving so far, I think it's a Harnat. The Harnat tree. Is still like. So I'm like, so maybe we need to buy more the Harnat and plant them here and see whether. Then because they are currently identified as one of the superfoods.
Okay.
So maybe we can do it. So if you don't experiment, we're also experimenting with grasses. We pick some of the grasses around that we think they're robust, like buffalo grass, and we are planting it. Then we found out buffalo grass I went to Lobatsi, side of the road where there's a lot of buffalo grass. In the heat, people think I was crazy, big head, and I was picking the seeds, the buffalo grass. And years, even right now with this heat and everything, it's still green. So I'm like, we got to watch this buffalo grass. So you got to keep experimenting. But in every industry, obviously we're talking agriculture, but in every industry, that's how breakthroughs happen. That's how historically, even in ancient times, Archimedes and everybody, they bumped onto because they were experimenting.
Lovely. Thank you guys for watching this episode. We really hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Deep Dive is dedicated to bringing you the most comprehensive and engaging information about business, personal finance, and personal development. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated with all our latest content. If you like this video, give it a like to show your support and help us reach a wider audience. And don't forget to share this video with your friends and your family who may be interested. Sharing helps us grow our community and connect with like-minded individuals. Leave a comment below and give us your biggest takeaway on this episode. If you're interested in being a part of our live studio audiences, make sure to register for the next show. Can't make it to the show? No problem. Check out our Patreon page to watch the full episode and get exclusive access to more great content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of The Deep Dive.